you got this Lindsey Graham, a senator, who got up in front of the microphones and made an idiot of himself, saying that if we didn't do certain things with nuclear weapons, we would be bombed by Iraq. Or anyway, it made no sense, and people were kind of like, "What? What did this guy just say?" So somehow he got some little bit of the information, and then he just, messed it up pretty badly and made himself look terribly stupid in the process. But he did have the right idea. He got one word correct, and that was nuclear device.
Tell us about the earthquake in South Carolina, Tiny.
Okay, I know nothing of an earthquake.
Well, there was an earthquake at the same time as that discharge in the ocean. This was on Dr. Janda's show. Yeah, go ahead.
No, actually, no. Yeah, okay, I'll explain that then. The actual device, when it detonated in the deep ocean, the U.S. Geological Survey actually graphed process of the explosion, and it was reported to the American public that it had been a seismic event, that it had been an earthquake. But it was Mr. Putin of Russia who actually, in his intelligence briefings, leaked it to the public that, in fact, the United States government had just detonated a nuclear device 560 miles southeast of Charleston, South Carolina. So he was the one that corrected the wrong reporting of the U.S. Geological Survey. Now, it's interesting that you can actually find these, the seismic graphs. You can find them and compare what was recorded back on the 7th and 8th. That was the late evening coming from the 7th to the 8th of October, and look at it and compare it to an actual nuclear device going off, and the two are the same. The pattern of a seismic activity and earthquake is totally different, and they're night and day when they're graphed. So if that's what you're referring to, then that's where the word earthquake came from.
Yes, it absolutely is. I have a brother-in-law that lives in South Carolina, right around Bob Jones University in Greenville, and they felt that earthquake. And so I gave him some information on it and had him check it out.
Right. But by the way, and kudos to your relatives, because my sister met her husband at Bob Jones University in Greenville.
Yeah, that's what I've told the folks that. It's a great connection that some of us have with you. Continue on about the two generals. We don't know well, you probably know who they are and can't tell us, but do we know where those other devices are?
No, they're still out there. So the three devices, one, of course, detonated, and the other two are still floating. Now, it's interesting that Mr. Obama fired 32 missile operators, and of course, it's always some moral charge of something, but that's bogus as all get out. The Nazis did the same thing when they wanted to be rid of people. And then another 92, and I had predicted back, I think you know on Dave's show, that I had predicted that there'd be the extra 92. And what has happened is Mr. Obama is very, it's like he pivots well. And I think a boxer pivots, or a person in judo throws somebody, and you're using a pivot at all points in time. So you're always ready to move in another direction. So the other direction he's moving in is he's recreating the opportunity for him to gain control again, but on a different level. By the way, is Dave Janda there?
No, we don't. Dave doesn't usually come out late.
Oh, it's one of these that goes to bed at 9 o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a surgeon.
He's a surgeon. He won't hang out with us. But he loves our caucus, and we do events with him, and he speaks at our outside events a lot of times.
Okay. Now we're running out of time, aren't we?
But we do have a little time. I want to get to some questions, so just wrap it up a little bit. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, sorry. Let's move forward from that event over to the litmus test. And last January 20th of 2013, I got a phone call from a friend, a senior military officer officer who'd known me for many years. We've done some things together, on behalf of the country. And he found me very upset that senior officers around him, people that he brought into the armed forces, were being asked a litmus test question, basically that if you were required by your commander, whether it be the commander-in-chief, including Mr. Obama, to go and confiscate arms, and the population was refusing to hand over those arms, you were ordered finally to shoot, to fire on American civilians. Would you do it? And I broke that news on the 21st, and immediately after we crafted, how we would make it look, and that went viral on the internet. And of course, I was on all sorts of crazy TV programs and radio, all pointing, not all pointing, but most pointing at the finger of, you're a nutcase, man. And no, but I stuck to my guns and put out the word that this is what was being done. And of course, at that point in time, we were really talking about the purge of the military that was about to take place. And of course, it did, in fact, take place. So we weren't being bogus. We were actually speaking to the early event. And of course, it's worked out that many hundreds, and now it's going down into the lower and lower ranks to find out where the loyalties are. And really what they're looking for is, will you be loyal to Mr. Obama, first and foremost, and the orders that he gives? Or will you cease your activities in obedience and to your oath, for example, if in fact the orders that you're being given are in violation of the Constitution and the rule of law?
Yeah, they were, some of them dismissed, some of them demoted, and some of them retired early because the answer to that litmus test question was, no, we won't move on American citizens to remove their guns. General Valley spoke to that last week here in the same manner that you're speaking now, and he verified that.
But what's interesting is General Valley came on a radio broadcast that I was appearing on. I think he phoned into it and got on air, and he said that, I want you to know that Jim Garrow's telling the truth, which was a real shock. I didn't know he was going to call in, but I really appreciated the fact that he did. And of course, then, it adds veracity to what you're saying, and your credibility, of course, is increased as a result, and then people are going to ask you questions and then believe what answers you give. Of course, if you have a pattern of behavior that suggests that the things you've talked about have actually been true, and that's something that people now understand, and why I'm being asked to speak as much as I am. It's the fact that it's 100%. Nothing's made up. All of this is information and evidence that you can look up, you can find. This stuff actually happened. Let me talk quickly about Beaujolais, because this is a very important piece of information. And I think you already know that I own schools all across the country. 286 schools, and the elite of China send their kids there. And just this last week, the advanced team in China from America went to my schools, two of my schools, one in Chengdu and one in Beijing, and asked if, you ready for this, if Obama could bring her two daughters to have a look at the schools. And why were they going to go look at the schools? Because they want to send their children to Chinese schools for the next year.
Now, who was this person again? Say the name again.
What person?
Yeah, that brought their kids to your school. Obama. Okay, I didn't get that. Okay, Michelle Obama. The crowd was... Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the advanced team of the Secret Service who were there, and someone else on the social side of things was talking to Chinese officials and wanting to see these schools. And it turns out the two schools that they were going to look at were the ones, two of the 286 that I own. So, imagine that. I get the chance to turn her down, which I did, by the way.
You're going to get an applause for that.
And by the way, that just should show you that God does have a sense of humor.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
So back to this Beaujolais. There was an up-and-comer He used to be the Communist Party secretary for the largest city in the world, Chongqing, which is in Sichuan province, right where the two rivers, the major rivers of China, the Jilin and the Yangtze, come together, the confluence right there in downtown, Jiefeng Bay in downtown Chongqing. But this guy was a real brute, and had murdered many people as he, consolidated his power. What he had done, he went and wiretapped the Central Committee members of the Communist Party of China in Beijing, something you never do. Or if you're going to do something like that, you're obviously going to take control. And we were able to let the Communist Party leaders know they were being wiretapped. They saw that it was true, and so we helped to arrange the demise of this Beaujolais guy who was coming up. Now, Beaujolais, the reason we were doing this is because he was anti-American all the way, a hardliner, anti-American, total commie, who would have moved China in a different direction than it's in now. Right now, I would say that China, it is a very Marxist, dogma-driven state, but it's got a wildly entrepreneur class all across the country, and they believe in free enterprise like you wouldn't believe. Everywhere you look, what's going on is free enterprise. But it was, Beaujolais was involved in the sale of organs, body parts, lungs, heart, kidney, livers, these parts of the body, and they were making a tremendous amount of money. And he was going to use that as a way to embarrass the members of the Central Committee of the Communist Party worldwide. I'm the only one talking about it, so once again, people can point the finger and say, nah, can't be true. Well, it is, and this guy was going to take control of China by taking control of the Central Committee of the Communist Party by silencing everyone. By virtue of having this information, and that's only part of it, but other pieces of information that would keep people they would shut them up. It's the same technique as Obama's using at every turn. That's why we don't see the opposition that would normally be there. He has dirt on almost everybody, and he had his henchman, David Axelrod, of course, working with Valerie Jarrett, who's gathering information on politicians at all levels throughout America to be used against them, to silence them, and to force them into acquiescence agreement with Obama and his policies. So that's an answer to a question of why are these people not standing up? Well, I'm telling you right now, with the exception of people like, you've got Dr. Ben Carson, you've got Ted Cruz, you've got, a few, Rand Paul, you've got a few brave ones who there's no dirt on them. And so they're able to speak up, but the others are cowed in silence.
Dr. Jim, it sort of explains the John Roberts decision, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely.
And that was on the IRS, the Obamacare being a taxing authority. Dr. Jim,
keep in mind why Judge Roberts did what he did. He had actually an illegal adoption of his two children. That's what they were holding against him. He would have lost his kids.
Really? See, that's the first I've heard of that, and you should know because you contributed to an adoption agency. So that's information I did not know about. That's amazing. Tell us, we're going to take a couple of questions here, but before we do, tell us about the Iranian ship 200 miles off the shore of, I'm not sure what state, but off American shoreline that has the capability, not provable, of maybe having an EMP weapon on it, and maybe even one that's disappeared. Tell us about that.
Well, there's more than one. Unfortunately, we've got a number of ships of foreign entities that have come in. They're not friends of ours. For example, the Chinese were in, a few months back, they were in Hawaii loading tons of gold to take it away from the Bank of Hawaii. And I think you know that other nations have gold bullion stored in Fort Knox. But of course, they've been moving it out away from America. China's about to bring back some of its gold because they just bought the JP Morgan building, which has the best vaults, gold storage vaults in the world, actually, in the basement. But yeah, there are foreign entities that have had ships off the shore, fully capable of sending missiles into American airspace. Now, frankly, if they're going to do it properly and have the full effect, they're going to have to blow up these missiles somewhere over Nebraska, the southeast corridor of Nebraska, to make it the full effect, and about 300 miles elevation. Now, they're not really capable of carrying the kind of missile that'll be able to do that. So it'll be minimum damage, but it would be huge damage if they were going to use an EMP. And you may as well face this. Electromagnetic pulse weapons are the way they're going to deal with us. That is how they're going to get us. If they're going to, that's how they're going to do it.
Well, I'm going to tell the folks, if anybody has a question, make your way forward, because they're going to have to speak right into the phone to ask you a question. It's about 10 after 11 now, so we have about 15 minutes. Folks will ask some questions, and I would have you do quick questions so that we can do quick answers. We'll see if, Mike, go ahead and put the mobile mic on Dave over there, and see if Dr. Jim can hear them over the speakers.
Yeah, Dr. Jim, how many people would God have to eliminate to turn things around?
Go ahead, Jim.
I heard, how many people do we have to eliminate?
But we asked how many people God had to eliminate.
I don't want to suggest that we're revolutionary or anything.
He's asking how many people God would have to eliminate in order to turn things around.
Well, God has a way of doing that, as you know. One person that was eliminated 2 months ago was the actual assassin that Axelrod and Jarrett have used for years in dealing with people. He himself was killed 2 months ago. So it's interesting that you're right, though. People do have to be, either their heart has to change. Getting saved will sure change it. That would be one thing. But you're right. There are people who are standing in the way of America. And again, I heard that little comment that I think the gentleman made about not wanting to, speak to revolution. When it comes down to it, the founding fathers, they put up with far less than we're putting up with now. It came to the taxation. They were ready to rebel over 2% tax. And what's the maximum marginal tax rate now?
Absolutely. Okay, we have another question. Tim.
Yes, Dr. Jim, my name is Tim. A friend of mine who was former CIA took care of the launch code computers at SEC headquarters, and his dad was one of 4 directors for the CIA for Air America during Vietnam. He has friends in the White House, and he shared with me that General Petraeus, that there were shots fired in the White House, and General Petraeus was fired because he wouldn't be a yes man for Obama. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know about shots being fired, but I do know that, yes, Petraeus wouldn't toe the line, yes, and that's why he was done in. But most of the leadership have been done in just that way. And by the way, notice have you ever heard anyone from the higher echelons, the higher ranks, who have been let go from the military? Have you heard any of them speak publicly?
No.
Now, isn't that a curious thing?
Another question from Joe.
Doctor, I've heard that the flipping of the sun's polarity does occur once every 11 years. And you claim in this most recent event that the South Pole fizzled out, relieving us from an EMP event. Although, do the scientists necessarily know which area that would have affected had it occurred? And if I got my date correct, I do recall that Quebec suffered an EMP event due to the sun, due to the solar flare from the sun back in '89, and was that due to the sun's polarity flipping? And on the second question, why hasn't these missing nuclear warheads come to light? Is it the fact that mainstream media is so entrenched in protecting Obama, or are we just all conspiracy theorists?
Okay, good couple of questions.